Now, NewsHour correspondent Tom Bearden reports from Laurel, Montana, on the big oil spill in the Yellowstone River.
For the last week, contractors have been working 12 hours a day, laying down what look like oversized paper towels on the standing water next to the Yellowstone River. They're trying to soak up some of the estimated 42,000 gallons of crude oil that flowed out of an ExxonMobil pipeline last Friday night, where it crossed under the river near the town of Laurel, about 17 miles west of Billings. The sheets absorb oil but not water. They're replaced when they've soaked up their fill of crude. The crews are also laboriously hand cleaning the grass and shrubs along the bank. ExxonMobil Pipeline Company President Gary Prusing says the rupture of the pipeline known as the Silvertip came as a surprise. Prusing says the company had done a comprehensive inspection at the end of last year.
We had been working with the city of Laurel, who had actually asked us to look at this particular crossing and to stand back and do additional engineering analysis and work with the city of Laurel to make sure that we were comfortable operating this line. We have had between 5 and 8 feet of cover between the pipeline and the bottom of the river. And again, at the time, as the river was rising, as we did this analysis, we felt like we had a very safe condition.
The U.S. Department of Transportation, which oversees pipeline operations, cited the company for 7 violations last year. A department spokesperson says the company had responded and the case had been closed. But now the runoff pouring down from the rapid melting of the record snowpack in the mountains of Yellowstone Park, more than 100 miles to the west, may have contributed to the accident by uncovering the pipeline.
It might surprise people to think that between 5 and 8 feet of the riverbed was eroded by this spring's runoff.
At this point in time, we do not know what the cause of this incident was. I know there has been speculation that that potentially was the cause, but we have an investigating team in place to try to determine exactly what happened. Obviously, in this particular case, as we did our risk assessment, there was something that we did not anticipate. And so we did have an event here. There will be learnings, of course, that we will build into our other pipeline management and actually will share with the industry to make sure that these kind of events do not occur in the future.
Pipelines crossing over and under rivers are not at all uncommon. The Silvertip alone has 5 crossings. In all, pipelines operated by various companies cross Montana rivers in 88 places, and the state has announced plans to review all of them. ExxonMobil operates 8,000 miles of pipelines in Montana alone, and there are some 2.5 million miles of lines that crisscross the entire country. New technology allows and new regulations require that new pipelines be drilled 25 feet or more beneath riverbeds. Prusing says that is how the crossing at Laurel is likely to be rebuilt. In the meantime, Mitt Bradshaw and a lot of other ranchers and farmers are having to cope with this spill. Bradshaw trains horses on a ranch about 35 miles downstream. Oil-laced floodwaters have invaded his corrals and forced him to move his livestock.
The only thing is you have to be careful that, any livestock probably isn't going to be the best thing in the world for them to drink.
Do you have other water for them to drink?
Yes, we have some well water, which we're, putting the animals in corrals so we can give them good well water.
One of the biggest problems facing the people trying to deal with this oil spill is the Yellowstone River itself. As you can see, there's an enormous quantity of water rushing down the channel, and that keeps people from getting to the places where they think the oil is.
But we really don't know what to expect. We haven't had oil contamination of this degree or on habitat that is this sensitive and this usable that I can think of in this area.
Bob Gibson has been waiting around in flooded wheat fields looking for oil.
Right by the edge of the open water there, you can start to see that bathtub ring of oil that formed at the top when it came in, and you can see it all the way along the edge there.
Gibson is with the Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife and Parks. A lot of ranchers who raise crops and cattle feed are wondering if this year's crop will be so contaminated they won't be able to harvest it.
Because of the high flow of the river, we're not able to access probably 99% of the riverbank. All of the islands are inundated, a lot of the shores are inundated, there's swamps backed up away from the water a lot, so we're not able to access the shores, the islands. There's actually enough debris and high enough water and dangerous enough water in the Yellowstone now that we're unwilling to put a jet boat on it to get to some of those areas.
Gibson and others say it may take 3 weeks before the river begins to go down. There's no doubt that many people here are worried. About 200 residents showed up for a town hall meeting Wednesday night to tell federal, state, and local officials about their concerns.
We've been calling that 1-800 number about 3 times a day, and we have had no response.
Several spoke of persistent, strong petroleum odors that made them feel sick.
I want to know, is this going to be like Agent Orange in Vietnam, that 5 years from now my lungs are going to go haywire on me? I want to know that right now.
The Environmental Protection Agency's regional administrator, Jim Martin, tried to reassure them.
We're conducting air and water samples, both in the river and from public drinking water systems and from private wells. And we're going to turn those results around as rapidly as the laboratories will allow us, and we'll get the results out to the public. But so far we're seeing no significant evidence that, no real evidence that it's unsafe to drinking water from drinking water systems.
State Senator Kendall Van Dyke is worried about wildlife and the people who come here to see it. He also represents Trout Unlimited, a national sportsmen's organization that tries to protect wildlife habitat. Van Dyke says this part of the river is not a blue ribbon trout fishery like Yellowstone Park. But he says the warm water species that thrive here also draw tourists. He's worried that after all the bad publicity, they'll stay home.
People come here from all over the world, and this time of year, this is tourist season in Montana. You know, we do a lot of bragging about Montana, especially this time of year with our fly fishing, and it's the reason people come here is to come experience this. And these aren't the kind of headlines people want in Montana. This isn't the way we like to talk about our state.
Most of the people we talked to were pretty satisfied with the cleanup effort, but not the governor. Governor Brian Schweitzer withdrew from the EPA-led Joint Command Center, saying ExxonMobil was actually in charge and was withholding information from the press and state officials. In response, an EPA spokesman reiterated that his agency was leading the effort, not the oil company. Tom Ryder is also unhappy. He says he lost a lot of boat repair business because the authorities closed a road and his customers couldn't get to his shop. That's the same road where the major cleanup operation is underway. It runs along the south side of the river channel near where the spill started. Deputies say it was closed to protect the cleanup workers. But the closure forced Ryder and others to take long detours.
Shouldn't have happened in the first place. The neighbors go through there. Unless there's water or oil going across that road, I don't see any reason to close it. It seemed to us, it was a general consensus that they didn't want the public to get close to the river, and that's the most accessible part of the river for the public right now.
Ryder loudly protested, so loudly at a roadblock that he later said he was surprised he wasn't arrested. But apparently